So when can people expect to see a difference, to see the number of boats crossing coming down, to see the number of asylum hotels coming down to?
Well, we're already reducing the backlog. So we are already on the asylum backlog.
Yes, that's a different question.
So go back to the boat. So on the asylum backlog and the hotel use, we are already making progress and we are already bringing the backlog down.
I'm not sure we'll ever get to the bottom of the best way to deal with the small boat arrivals, but at least Labour seems to be making some headway.
And so we expect to continue to make progress on that through the winter.
But to be clear also with people, reducing the backlog also means allowing more people to stay, and those people also will need housing, they'll need health, they'll need jobs.
Well, it also means increasing returns. And one of the biggest changes that we have seen since the election is we moved people who were working on the failing Rwanda scheme that had sent 4 volunteers to Kigali. They had 1,000 people working on that scheme, that completely failed scheme. We have moved people in. We've actually moved around 1,000 people into returns and enforcement. And as a result of that, we're now on track for over 13,000 removals, returns since the election, a big increase in returns and also a big increase in the raids on illegal working, a big increase on arrests and enforcement, because the rules have to be respected and enforced. They just haven't been for far too long.
But I will ask you again, when can our viewers expect to see the number of people making small boat crossings, putting their lives at risk trying to get to the UK, when can they expect that to come down?
In some ways, we seem to have got caught asking an impossible question. We have no real control over how many people attempt to come over the channel, especially as there's less collaboration with our European neighbours now we've left the EU. Why should they help us trying to stop illegal immigration into our country? Here Shadow Home Secretary Mr Gulpalot Chris Philp tries to pour cold water over Labour's achievements so far with a lot of technical info.
The Home Secretary told us there'd been more returns of migrants in a 6-month period than in 5 years. There've been more raids on illegal workplaces. There've been more arrests. You must be pleased to hear that.
Well, they've been continuing the work of the previous government. Those trends of more removals have continued. But there are, of course, a couple of points worth highlighting. One of those is that the vast majority of those returns are to European and North American countries, firstly. And secondly, in Labour's first 3 months in office, they returned small boat arrivals in relatively small numbers. Their small boat returns actually went down compared to the 3 months before the election and amounted to under 5% of small boat arrivals. So when you look at those figures, not quite so impressive.
Andy Burnham, who was also in the Laura Kuenssberg studio, had this to say on Philp and the failed Rwanda plan.
It was just interesting, if I could just say, listening to the Shadow Home Secretary about the Rwanda scheme. If they were so confident in it, I think they would have delayed the general election, wouldn't they, to when the first planes took off. But it's noticeable that they didn't do that because they know it was a colossal failure and waste of money. And they, like with everything else, they weren't prepared to kind of own any of their issues. They cut and run, and just to hear all of that just now was just
really wound you up, hasn't it?
It has, because they're just not. There's no humility there in saying yes, we failed. We need to learn the lessons. I didn't hear that from the Shadow Home Secretary.
Click here for Kuenssberg gets an award for Best Interviewer. I don't think so.